Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AfterShock EpiCenter live stream. I'm your host and the AfterShock Communications Specialist, RuthAnn Thompson. So we have quite the show for you today. Not only are we going to talk about the title that's coming out for this coming new comic book day on January 26th, but also we're going to talk about our happy hour coming up, some new books that you need to have on your pull list immediately, as well as we'll be wrapping up the show with our new segment, the Reviews, where I'm going to go into detail with all the spoilers about some of last week's titles. So don't worry, it's at the very end. So if you haven't read those titles yet, you can just make sure you keep following us and mute the rest of the show. So first up, we have our title that's going to be available in comic book stores tomorrow for New Comic Book Day on Wednesday, January 26th. And this is the absolutely exciting finale of Seven Swords with issue 5. So this comes from the incredibly cinematic writer of Erin Daughtery and the beautiful artwork from Federico Dallocchio, and it's just too much fun since in issue 4 we found out the history of the mystery prisoner who is sought after by Richelieu, and the Seven Swords plan to invade the secret vault of the Vatican, but it falls apart when they are betrayed by another secret plot. Dun, dun, dun. So now in this 5th and final issue, Cardinal Richelieu's extreme diabolical plan has been enacted, and the Seven Swords must square off against an infernal nemesis, the likes of which they have never encountered before. They must band together and fight with more than their swords to save the world and their very souls from the devil himself. But can this mostly sinful group be able to come together, the swashbuckling heroes, and unite to slay Lucifer in the ultimate contest of bravery when they can barely keep from turning on one another? I don't know. You're going to have to read this, and I'm so excited for anybody who reads this, and we'll definitely be talking about this next week on the next week's reviews. We also have some incredible titles that are coming up, so make sure that while you're at the comic book shop tomorrow that you let them know about these 2 incredible titles you want to add to your pull list, which first up is Cross to Bear number 4. This is not quite the final issue of this incredible series of this group called The Order, who has been trying to take care of all the evil in the world, and there's nothing more evil than Jack the Ripper, who shows up in Tombstone, Arizona, so the Wild Wild West. So that'll be in shops on February 23rd, but the cutoff date is this coming Monday on January 31st to be able to order it. So like I said, while you're in there tomorrow, don't forget to have that added to your pull list, as well as My Date with Monsters number 4. So this is also has a order deadline of Monday, January 31st, and will be in shops February 23rd. And this is not the final issue of My Date with Monsters by Paul Tobin with artist Annie McDonald, but it's getting right up there. And make sure you stick around if you've been enjoying the series, and we can get really down and nerdy about the issue that just came out last week. And we are so excited. We're about to have our first ever happy hour in 2022 on February 3rd with none other than the incredible creator of Dark Red as well as Bequest here at AfterShock, Tim Seeley. So I'm very, very stoked. Got to hang out with him a bit at C2E2, and even more excited to have him on the happy hour for this next Thursday on February 3rd. So make sure that you pour yourself a drink and join us, because we will not only have him as a guest, but of course we'll have our world famous live sale, where it'll include a happy hour exclusive variant cover by Mike Ruth of the brand new One Shock Dark Red, Where Roads Lead. And this is going to be, because that's coming out next week on Wednesday. So very, very stoked to have that for the live sale. And we're going to have so much more. So make sure you pour yourself a drink and join us next Thursday, February 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern, and we will get down and nerdy with Mr. Tim Seeley himself. In case you missed it, we also had a brand new announcement last week for an exciting new title called The Naughty List. So this comes from the mind of Nick Santora, who you might know him. He's done a few things like The Sopranos, Law and Order, The Fugitive, and Prison Break. And this is going to be illustrated by Lee Ferguson, who you might recognize him from his work with us with Sympathy for No Devils, as well as work with Sam and His Talking Gun. And this comes the Santa Claus origin story we're sure you you've never heard before, since we follow Nicholas Sinterklaas, an average enough guy who hundreds of years ago made a wish on a star and now spends his eternity avoiding insulting imagery of being an old, rotund, white-bearded man in the North Pole. And this holiday was going to be like any other for him until somebody steals his naughty list and is using it for their advantage. So the first issue of this will be out in April, just in time for the series to be culminated and collected into a trade paperback just in time for the holidays. Very stoked about that. And we're still looking for an ambassador. So we're still missing an ambassador in beautiful Long Island, New York. So if you are somebody you know who's a fan of AfterShock and would love to visit shops once a month, get paid, and also get some awesome AfterShock swag, make sure you click this link and apply today so that we can interview and get you started right away. And now it is time for our new segment, the last week's review. So watch out, folks. We're going to have some spoilers coming your way. Talk about from last week's title is My Date with Monsters #3. So absolutely adore the writing of this and Paul Tobin with artist Andy McDonald, who I don't know if you remember, he did the art for I Breathed a Body a year or two ago with AfterShock, and that is another title that I'm obsessed with. And there's just so much to love about this whimsical and terrifying world of nightmare monsters and the nightmare world of dating. This juxtaposition of the sci-fi elements of The Breach when weaponizing dreams backfired 7 years ago versus the hopeless romantic fantasy that the only way to stop these monsters from escaping the dream world and closing the breach is finding Machi's mom, Risa, true love. Aww. And Matt, I will check in about the if we need anybody in Northwest Ohio for an ambassador. It's just you know, apply, and we'll probably reach out to you right away and let you know for sure, because who knows, we might need somebody in your area. And continuing on for talking about my Date with Monsters #3, there's 3 things I would love you guys to let me know. First up is what your thoughts on the Risa training facility and Genka, who seems to be the one we're hoping to be Risa's true love. It's just what I kind of feel from it. You know, I haven't read ahead yet, but it's what I'm kind of sensing. I want to hear, 2, your thoughts on Croak and his relationship to the demon world versus his relationship with Risa and Machi, which I absolutely love. And the last thoughts I'd love to hear from you guys is Machi herself. Is finding her mom true love really going to give her the stability she needs to heal the trauma of seeing her not great father killed and close the breach for good? I want to hear your thoughts on that. All right, but jumping through this specific issue, and I'll give you some time, guys, some time to type up your thoughts of those 3 things. Issue 3 of this title that came out last week started off with a lot going on. We had a terrible monster, Chub, released by a kid who lied about taking his dream-suppressing drug and was using basically Machi's hair to choke the housemate of her now dead boyfriend's babysitter. And then, which at the same time was choking Machi. So there's that going on. And then Croak, actually, I love that he's actually Hethri, the bridge dweller, the eater of demons, but I just love that she just calls him Croak and he absolutely hates it. Well, first he saves Machi by shaving her head completely, which, oh my God, making her middle school life so much more awkward and difficult. And then he actually enters back into the impatient abyss where all the demons come from, and to find out more on Chub and how to find and end him for good. And then, of course, we still have Genka, who is reluctantly training at the Risa training facility that comes up with everyone's favorite idea to spice things up, an orgy, because who wouldn't come up with that in this very odd training scenario of trying to train to be the best lover and fall in love with Risa? It's very fun. But as you know from reading this issue, none of that fun can start because Chub shows up and seeking anything tied to Machi and Risa and starts just putting everybody under a spell that they can't move and just killing them one by one and just really reveling in it. And thank goodness for that sweet doggo that Genka saved. And it saved the day by barking and breaking Chub's concentration enough just enough for Genka to move and start attacking. So I haven't seen any of you guys comment on the three ideas that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. Just so for me personally, uh, when it comes to the RISA training facility, I think this is such a fascinating look of what works in relationships, what doesn't. How do you possibly train to be the one? Like it's a very fun concept to try to dive into. I mean, we already in the first issue, we kind of had all the questions answered when poor Machi is asking Croak of all people about what love is and all that kind of stuff. So that's very fun. And getting into Croak, I am so fascinated by this monster because he's basically the good guy. And even when we interviewed Paul Tobin during the happy hour, that's one of his favorite type of characters to create, who's somebody who's technically bad, but is using like their badness for good. Oh, and Max Cage says the training facility is very funny, right? It's so funny and strange, and I kind of like the fact that even the general, once Genka came up with his idea of like, let's have an orgy, he's like, you know what? You finally had a good idea. And it's like, wait, what? Oh, okay, interesting. Um, I am glad that I think it was right in issue one or two that I think it was, yeah, straight up in issue one that Machi actually asked Croak, like, why don't you and my mom get together? It's like, well, we're a human and a monster, but no, because that's of course what everybody's thinking because they seem to have like a very like good connection, and Croak really wants to protect them. And I do like that fox lady creature in the alternate universe basically was like, "You're still lying, and about why you want to help them." And I'm like, "But why? Does he actually have like deeper feelings? I don't know." And for the third thing that I want to talk to you guys about today, with Machi and finding her mom true love, if that's the actual thing that's going to stabilize her and close that breach. I love it that on the focus of that versus like just true love, it's not about that. It's because she just needs to heal that breach, the final breach that all these monsters are still coming through, which is the nightmare of constantly reliving her father getting killed in front of her. So I don't know. I don't know. I wonder if this is going to be like a Frozen situation where we think it's one thing, but actually finding true love doesn't mean that, blah 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 blah. So we'll see about that. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about it though. And next up to go into a deep review on is the trade paperback of the complete series of Silver City. So I like that I'm doing a review on this because the lead character is named Rue, and I've been obsessed with it. In case you missed it, we did an excellent happy hour with the wonderfully talented Olivia Quatera Briggs to talk really, really deeply about this title. And for her, this is actually based on a dream that she had in college, like basically everything that happened within it. And then she just built out from there and has been trying to find a good home for this and decided on a comic book with us. So very, very excited about that. So the three things I'm curious from you guys about this whole story, which is incredible. Like, what are your thoughts on this purgatory afterlife, just in general, like your thoughts on it? Two, what were your thoughts when the realization of who Rue actually is and her powers and all that? And three, I want to hear your thoughts on the final page and the crazy twist at the end because I'm still a little upset about it. I almost wanted to like call up Olivia and be like, shit, what is this? So for all those who have read the book, this is an incredibly intense story of right when we start, we have a young misfit named Rue, and she's supposedly going on this vacation with this dude out of the blue, but then some sort of bomb goes off and she gets killed and sent into this afterlife purgatory called Silver City, which I don't know about you, but it kind of gives me like kind of sort of some vibes of like just the look of it of Dark City. I don't know if anybody else got that as well. And Luca Merli, who's the artist on this, did such an incredible job. It's so good. So she gets thrown into this world, and right away it's just kind of finding your place in line and all this kind of stuff. And I love any sort of afterlife stories where it's just a little bit of a twist in reality. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, because whenever I think of a purgatory, I don't know if anybody's seen the old like early 90s movie Defending Your Life. That's one of the first things I think of. Anyways, I don't know if I'm totally alone in that band camp. Yeah, thank you. for noticing my callback to Dark City, Max Cage. Well done. But yeah, so this story is so interesting, and I always love a hero that finds out that there's so much more. You know, especially Rue, who's been treated, and basically we find out later on has been kind of cultivated to think that she is worthless, she is nothing, but has to keep her alive because when she dies, she gets sent back and just gets reincarnated as the, you know, this angel of that's going to save everybody. So the realization of what Rue actually is, I absolutely loved. I loved the explosion of power from her trying to save the little girl who was actually still alive in the real world and trying to get her back to her body. But guys, that final twist at the end, because she basically culminates all of these friends, and we see that they are obviously dead because that's the only way you get to the Silver City and be able to stay in the Silver City. But come to find out, there were actually generals from her, you know, great army reincarnated. Okay, cool. But then we find out that it was Rue herself that killed them all. What? Sorry, what? I still can't wrap my head around it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Earl says Silver City was such a wonderful surprise and the art was beautiful. Absolutely agree. Yeah, Luca did such an incredible job, and Olivia couldn't get enough of it. She would describe stuff and it would look exactly the way that she pictured it in her imagination and in her dream that she had about it. So really, really awesome stuff. So I highly suggest, if you guys didn't pick up these titles yet, pick up these titles. Let me know what you think of this new segment that we're going to keep doing. So it's going to be the reviews every week to talk about the titles that came out the week before. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate every single one of you. Make sure you stay safe out there, wash your hands, wear your mask, keep your distance, and only read dangerously. We'll see you next week on Tuesday for the EpiCenter. Bye now.